Hi, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Steven.
Welcome to IvyBoundLA. This is an education and parenting-based podcast and YouTube channel that will share conventional and not so conventional methods in guiding children to an Ivy League education.
Today, we've taken the first part of a series talking about parenting mindset. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and let's get right to it.
Today we will talk about mindset, the parenting mindset, and how the important keys to each phase of your child's growth and from the early years to 12 years old, and what contributed to our sons getting into an Ivy League. So if you tune into our podcast, we'll talk more in depth about how parents can teach children to have control over their brains and their actions and the role that we play as parents. So, you know I love to Google and find research. So, research shows that parents can have a wonderful impact on their children's mindset by strengthening those connections in their brain through active participation and the learning process. I'll leave the link down below of where I got my research, just like I usually do. And when children learn that brains can physically make changes with effort, it leads to more productive and greater achievement. So, we're going to start it off with the parental mindset. One of the key things I think, and Steve will speak about that, is being intentionality, and looking at your own, reflect on your own failures or unresolved issues you have, either with your parents, siblings. And so in our last episode, we talked about intentional parenting with eyes wide open. And part of this is taking inventory of yourself. Could you give us an example of some baggage that someone could take into being a parent?
Absolutely. As coming from a South American background, a lot of times from where I'm from, back in Guyana, we tend to have a more firm approach to parenting, and especially in the era I came out of. My dad was very much an authoritarian type presence in our house, so it was a very strict household, lovingly strict, but very strict nonetheless. So one of the things that I didn't want to continue on with that legacy was a firm hand on our kids. So my eldest boy, being that I was very young when I had him, he experienced a lot of that. But when the time came around when our twins arrived, it was different. It was more of an intentional approach to parenting differently. It was more, I was strict, but lovingly strict. More so where the communication levels were open, and I wanted the boys to feel that they can come to me with anything under the sun. It didn't matter what it was, which was not really the case as I was growing up. So one of the things that I've heard in the past was you can either reproduce or duplicate what happened to you, or you can choose to do something differently. So I chose myself personally to do something differently in the way we were raising our boys.
Yeah, so for me, an example was my household, my parents being from the East Coast, a little bit more volume when they spoke, and so that always for me, that wasn't something that I wanted to duplicate. And it's not a negative thing; it's just something that I didn't want to duplicate. So in general, when people come to our house, they say, "Oh, it's so quiet," because I'm reading. Steve is maybe doing research, or we're all doing something that necessarily is not such a loud household. And we don't speak very loudly even in our home. And that was just something intentional for me that I wanted to change. So we're going to talk about 0 to 8, that early years, and how our flexibility helped, because as you know, your child so rapidly grows and changes from that age of 0 to 8. One of the first things was secure attachment. We were always present. And I like to use, when you've heard people say, our presence was a present to our child, because we were always there. Steve, if he had to go somewhere or travel, I was there. If, we tag team. And so the other thing was that secure attachment was also because of the nurturing that we gave them.
Fortunate for me, as I mentioned in our first episode 1. So I'm a network engineer. So not a lot of times, but all the time I work from home. So I was able to be fortunate enough to not having to go into an office So I was working from the house since the boys were fourth grade, basically. By me being home working, I used to call myself a stay-at-home dad for the most part, because when they came home from school, I was here. So it wasn't the issue of me coming home late, having to battle traffic, and so I was able to be here and be present in their lives during those formidable age. So it helped assist us to be able to build a bond that today is still moving forward and growing.
Yeah, and we were a very affectionate household, and that's what I was saying about being nurturing. Steve and I are very affectionate with each other, but also very affectionate with our children, and so that's really important for boys, because we raised boys, to see that affection coming from their dad, that's okay and that's acceptable.
Absolutely, and it was very important for me as a dad to show and model to them how to be. It's okay to be, huggy, kissy type of environment at the house, because they're young, and I didn't want them to be raised up being hard. Even though you can be tough and understand your role as a young man, especially I leave sports to all those different things, but it was very important for me to instill in them that it's okay to feel loved. And by physical affection.
Because of that love, we surrounded them with a community of grandparents and friends that perpetuated and kept up our ideals of love, support, that community. And so we were even intentional about our friends that we chose. Absolutely. We wouldn't allow Miles and Isaiah to be around our friends that weren't helping Miles and Isaiah towards a goal. And I was fortunate enough to have my parents here on the West Coast, and my parents were very supportive and loving, and we were intentional about bringing them over to make sure that they had that relationship with their grandparents, with their uncles, and got that each person in the family in that community contribute something different.
Yeah, I mean, Michelle was amazing at not waiting for anyone waiting for a family to come over. She made it a point to actually take the boys to them and do outings and time at the beach, or when she would plan excursions to the museum or whatever, she would invite her parents or siblings, that kind of thing. So they all had a good bond and input on the boys' rearing, on how they were to what we have today, which is children that love their family and understand the power and meaning of the family unit and the family bond, which strengthened all of that.
Yeah, and I feel if I look at each of my family members, they've contributed something different. Absolutely. From intellectual conversation to my dad being all in with everything that they wanted and kind of being their underpaid or not paid at all Uber when we couldn't do it. So
even down to coaching, and when they were at elementary school, he was their basketball coach, assistant coach, and some football assistant coach for their elementary school. So those are value add stuff that you can't get that time back. So being able to actually have your parents pour into your kids is super, super valuable. So if you have access to your parents and to the grandparents, that kind of thing, you definitely want to leverage and take advantage of that. My parents were back in New York, so being out here in California, my kids were not able to take advantage of my culture from being from South America and that kind of thing. And then also the fact that they're back in New York, so it was more of a distance thing. So they got to, be involved as far as telephone, that kind of stuff, but that's never the same, especially when you have a family unit that's very close by.
And that leads us to the next thing, which is that support gave them that confidence to try everything, and that was our rule in the house, from foods to trying sports, was that you try everything.
Yeah, we exposed them to everything. Every sporting activity under the sun, they at one point tried it. Now, from swimming to playing tennis, karate. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Karate. We even did golfing at the golf range. They played that. Fencing, flag football, baseball, basketball. and then they landed on lacrosse. Now that was, I got to give the credit where the credit is due. That was due to their grandpa, Grandpa Joe, introduced them to lacrosse, and that was it. That was a wrap.
Yeah. So it was just trying everything, and we had, trying food for the first time. You try it once. If you don't like it, that's okay. But the rule was you had to finish. If you start a sport, you had to finish it, and we didn't care if you didn't like it. We invested in that, and so they had to finish it.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was, yeah, exactly. So, and back to the food thing, you can try it, like Michelle mentioned. You don't have to eat it again, but to say that I don't like that because it look a certain way, you don't know what it tastes like. So give it a shot, The hope and intention of that was in the future, as they grow, they would try things. They won't be afraid to try things, And it's funny because later on in their lives, and I've overheard them talking to their younger cousins. He said, "Come on, guys, you don't even know what it tastes like. Just try it." Yeah. So that's something that it definitely was a big value add, a big win, as far as I'm concerned, because then they made them very adventurous, whether it was from foods or down to sports, because they even did BMX of all things. So they were experiencing a lot of different things and took advantage of those opportunities, and some they liked and continued for a couple of seasons, and some they were like, you know what, I'm good with this. Let's go to something else.
Yeah, and the next thing is like all of those things that we had them do with, my parents and friends and all of that was like collecting those moments. And all of those moments contributed or was an investment to them and their future and their personality and what they're doing. So going to the park and rolling down hills to be, playful, to going to museums, and not just science museums, but going to art museums. And it also showed them etiquette when you're in an art museum, and appreciation, for those things. So it's that well-rounded student that we talked about, public versus private. It's that holistic approach to a child. We going to those different places, they were young at times, and so they would have breakdowns, the kid falls out, and we would tolerate those outbursts to a certain degree because we used that as teachable moments.
Sure, and and when they even had their own little arguments between each other, and they're twins, so they're going to have times where they're going to clash, like siblings do. Well, Michelle was great at coming up with, I guess you say, alternative solutions to helping them problem solve those crisis management themselves through those issues. So they would do things like one story I recall when they were toddlers. She would have them sit in a chair facing each other, face to face, and talk through, what happened, how he made you feel, and all that kind of thing. To me, that's torture, but yeah. they learned to manage themselves in that situation. And when something happened the other one didn't like, they had no problems telling each other immediately, "I didn't like how you did that," or "I didn't like how I felt when that happened." So they actually were working on talking and communicating with each other at a very young age, and which was a very intentional thing that Michelle, put into their upbringing.
Yeah. So I think all of those things are like little seeds that we planted in them, and learning how to resolve conflict also led to them having that seed of confidence in their mind, trying different things. So that seed planted, I can do anything, I can try anything, and I can do anything, and I have that confidence. And so a tiny seed is like a small investment in your child's future. And proper planting of that seed, of different things that you put and you plant in the seed, imagine it growing. And it grows into something more than you can even imagine.
In our podcast, we'll go more into that. But when we talked about sports, it was, we introduced them to all types of different types of sport, how valuable that is. It teaches them team building. It teaches them to win. We came from a house, we actually instilled in them in our household that everyone doesn't get a trophy, because life is not that way. And even though, I don't know when that changed, but when I was a kid, everybody didn't get a trophy. So if you competed in some sort of activity or sport and you won, you get your just due. But if you didn't win, you got an attaboy for trying, and you make sure you tried your best. But it wasn't a situation where you got a trophy because you just showed up. For us, that lessened the value of the actual event, because there's always going to be a winner and loser in life, or in any situation. You go to a job interview, you're not guaranteed to get that job. They're not going to hire everyone that interviews for that job. So there's losing that's going on with that particular situation. So that's very important for us, that we make sure we instill in them to not have that attitude of expecting that if I participate, I get a trophy.
So it leads to the next part. So that was our mindset and some intentional things we did from 0 to 8. And when they got to this, what they call the tween years, which is 9 to 12, it was instilling some of those things and that we already instilled in them, but adding things to that. And one of the things was partnership and presence. So we were partnering with each other and made sure that we always spoke positively about each other. And for example, I would say to Miles and Isaiah, your daddy is a wonderful man, and those affirmations, so they know and look up to him, because I wanted them to always look up to him as a role model. So we always did that, and we were always, we talked about, present for them.
Absolutely, and likewise, I did that for the boys as well, saying that mommy is amazing, and mommy is super smart, and she knows all the different science things and things about life, and once again, we played in our role really well. We actually, I'm an IT technical fixer type of guy. I'm a tinkerer. I make things and repair things, that kind of stuff. So I would always include them when I'm working on stuff and, fixing something in the car or around the house or building something. And then Michelle was amazing at, the learning process and teaching them all the different facets of, education and science and making it fun for them. And then when they had those science projects that come up, we would actually tag team and I would help them build something, and we would go get the parts all over the place, and we made it fun. So learning became not just the sterile learning environment. It became a fun environment for all of us to participate in those those really elaborate science projects, etc.
Yeah, and I think that also, because we knew what we were pouring into them, we were also okay with other people pouring into them. Like we said, the community aspect. But we, because it's one thing that you have to remember, you're not solely responsible, and you shouldn't put it all on your shoulders of your child's faith, their education. There's so many people that if you're willing to ask the question, they want to help you. And that's what we were willing to do, to put our ego aside, ask questions, listen, and apply the things that were applicable to our household and the goals that we had for Miles and Isaiah. So we talked about success, and we talked in our first episode, we talked about dream building, how we dream built, but we also had a vision board in our house, and it was right on the wall in our dining room area, and it showed cars and it showed different things. And some people would come. And
they also had words of affirmation.
Yeah, dream big. And so we put that in front of them, those visual things to always look at that we were trying to attain as a family.
In our podcast, we'll go into greater details of the different type of dream building we've done as a family, and try to instill in the boys, how important it is to dream build. Because one of the things that they loved in dream building was homes. They loved beachfront properties, cars, and all the different things that come with what we may call wealth. Because as we mentioned in the first episode, when we talked about our dining room table conversation, we would talk about how you want to live, not necessarily what do you want to be, because who knows what they want to be, right? If you recall that, you can go back to the first episode and catch that dialogue. But the thing was, they wanted to be on the beachfront. They loved the water. They always wanted to swim. They go to the beach, no matter what temperature it was, they'll be in that water. I was like, I can't even get my ankle on that thing without freezing. But they'll be in the water, jumping around, playing in the water, and they see those houses on top of the hill, like in Laguna Beach area and Newport Beach, all up the coast. And they were like, Daddy, how do we live there? Like, buddy, that's a different conversation, but they were aspiring to live that life. So we chased lifestyle. We didn't necessarily chase a profession. And as we talked about before, we associated that lifestyle with a certain income that you would need to attain. So, but the thing is, it gave them something to look forward to, gave them something to fight for as they were growing up and seeing these different things. 'Cause we're in California. There's Lamborghinis driving down the street at any given time. There's Porsches every day. And there's also, you go to the beach areas, you'll see, Lambos down to Bugatti sometimes in San Diego area. You see it all in California on a regular street. So those things are definitely, we wanted them to feel and understand that it's attainable, and you can use your mind to get that. Not saying that people, athletes don't rate that as well, which yes they do, but everyone is not an NBA superstar. But they have to take a different path. So we focus on the education path, and if something athletic happens, hey, let it run with that, but they will be super smart anyway with it.
So if you're getting value from this right now, please hit the like button at this time. We would love for this, what we're talking about, to get to other people and be added value to other people. So one of the other things that we did was we spoke candidly to them, meaning we shared our own struggles and failures. We were transparent with them. We all have struggles and failures. Adulting is not easy, right? So we would talk about if we had failures and the struggles, but how we got through them. So they could hear that we weren't these unattainable parents, that they would never meet the mark. We weren't perfect, and we let them know that.
Exactly, and so that's one of the things that is critical. I think we do our kids a disservice where we speak to them as if they won't understand what's really going on. Yeah, of course, it's going to be tailored to their age and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you give them a shot. They'll understand. And if you have to give a couple of extra words to explain it, by all means, words are free, right? Just give it to them.
Yeah.
So that's very important, and then allows them to feel involved and empowers them to even have their own way of thinking and thought process. And to this day, we see the benefits of that because they're very open and very frank with us, and we love that. We encourage that. We want them to be 100% open with us because that's how we raised them to be.
Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing is we speak positively, not just about other people, not just about lifestyle, but we talk positively about risks, about taking risks. And we encourage them to take risks because it's a natural part of the learning process. You're not going to succeed all the time. You're going to fail, but that's part of the learning process. So we wanted them to try everything, even if something is hard. We know that through that process, it's showing them that they can get through something difficult. And so that was part of our mindset of teaching them courage rather than teaching them being fearful of things.
Yeah, and just to piggyback a little bit on that is the mere fact of if you fail, don't treat it as a failure. Treat it as an opportunity to learn. So now you know what doesn't work. And those are the kind of the main things we try to reinforce with them over and over and over again. It's not a one-time thing. You got to keep reinforcing that. So when they flunk a test or whatever it was, in school, we treat it like, now you know what you don't know. Before you can go into an exam or go into a test, a quiz or something like that, thinking that you know it all, but then when you figure out that, okay, I didn't get all the answers correct, now you know what you need to focus on, and now you can take that particular opportunity and seek help. Like you can ask one of us, I don't know what happened here, and then we'll go get that information for you and help you during the next time you take that test again.
But we also did look at that, and everything that we were doing from the early years also helped us to the tween years, helped us to look at what are their strengths. Mm-hmm. So we made sure to play in their strengths and not their weaknesses. We knew what their strengths were, so why would we keep repeating, okay, you keep trying that thing that you're weak in? This is where we were starting to develop, okay, you're strong in science and math. And so we started to recognize that. So zeroing in, and so we zeroed in on their strengths, and that will give them the energy to press on when difficulty inevitably is going to happen. But we gave them that courage and not that fear, and also to know that no matter if you fail at something, you know what you're strong at. And so that gives them that built-in innate confidence that they need.
And confidence is key. When you have a child that's confident, they're walking into situations knowing that I can do this, or I'm going to give my best shot. I may not get it right, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And that's, a lot of times as a parent, that's really all you want. You want the kid to give their 100% effort. They may not get the best results out of that, but you want them to give their 100% effort.
So one of the things that we didn't do is we didn't keep up with societal norms. Absolutely. And one of the things is, here's a cell phone at this age and that age. We waited, and it was a delayed gratification. So we waited until they were in 8th grade to get a cell phone. We waited longer to get them video games. We wanted them to focus on things that weren't, and not their phone. We wanted them to focus on going to the museums, doing things like that as a family, and not so much on social media and those type of things, because those things can be very distracting.
Absolutely. And, video games thing was, definitely we found it to be a super distracting medium. So they were only allowed to, of course, eventually they were able to play video games, but it was only on the weekends. So they were able to play on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after school. And it wasn't an issue of being able to, it wasn't like a mandatory thing that they had to have access to the video games during the week, because, they had work to do during the week. Even though at a younger age, you're building that foundation, you're building brick by brick on what's important. And for us in our household, I'm not talking about anyone else's household, but in our household, it was important for them to interact. We had dinner together, we played, we had Nerf wars at the house and that kind of thing. So the video game piece was for the weekends and the weekends only.
Yeah, and it gave them something to look forward to on the weekends.
Yeah.
And it gave us set family times. Even Friday night was, I made it their night. So they get to pick the movie, pick their treat, pick what we had for dinner. And so Friday night was, you get to relax, and then you can go play video games or we watch a movie. So the next thing that we did was we looked at finances. So we gave them a bank account where they had a debit card and they could manage their money so they could understand the value of a dollar.
Mm-hmm. Early on, we gave them ways of earning money. So it wasn't like we just said, Daddy, can I get $10 to buy something? No, we said, what can you do to earn that? So, or they would come to us. It was funny because they would come to us and say that, Daddy, Mommy, Daddy, what can I do to earn $3 because they wanted to get something or whatever. So it gave them skin in the game, and it gave them a way to, to actually build their own confidence and to earn the earning power of a work ethic, to actually earn money and not just expect a handout with, or an allowance.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, and we've kind of talked about this, but we were good listeners. And so whatever our time together, they knew it was a safe place to talk to us, and to be in complete confidence. But also we listened to whatever they were interested in. So we were all in with anything that they were all in. When they started like video games, we were all in on video games. We knew all of the language of video games. When they were all in on different, I think it was like Penguin something, I forgot the name of it. We were all in on that.
SWTOR and
SWTOR and all that. So those were all the things that they knew that they could come to us, that we would be excited about the things that they were excited about.
And exactly. So again, it's a thing that, you want your kids to be able to come to you and if they come to you with the trivial things, they'll come to you with the serious things. So it was very important for us that we wanted to give the environment for the boys to be able to always feel comfortable and confident and strong in understanding that Mommy and Daddy is going to be there to answer those questions for them, no matter what that question was, because nothing was off the table. It didn't matter. So when they got involved in any sport, we took it upon ourselves to research, watch videos, and thank God for YouTube, I tell you. So we would look at YouTube and figure out the sport, because when they landed on lacrosse, I'm from Brooklyn. I never heard of lacrosse. You know what I mean? So, so we had to, but they wanted to play it. So we went ahead and, figured out how you can find it. Michelle found a team locally, Orangeman, and got them on the team, and they played and got better and better and better to the point of later on in high school years, they became captains of the team. So it was a fun time and a fun ride to watch and have them have us participate fully in their lives and in their decisions at such a very young age.
And next week we'll be talking about really crucial tips. So please join us, because we're going to be talking about the teen years, which everyone they get scared. The teen years, no, I have a teenager. And I know it starts younger, usually like 5th grade, but yeah, we know the teen years can be rough, and so we want to share with you some things that we did that really helped us get through the teen years successfully. So we want to thank you for joining us today, and we're so excited to continue sharing some of our tips and how our boys earn their Ivy League education.
So again, join us next week where we'll be talking with our very first special guest, who's a family therapist and my best friend, Marty Sellers, about a child's mental mindset during the early, tween, and teen years. Don't miss it. You're going to definitely want to check that one out. And if you would like to reach us, you can find us on all social media platforms at IvyBoundLA. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below. And lastly, please hit that like and subscribe button, and hit as well as the notification bell so that you won't miss anything coming up in the future. Remember, if you stay ready, then you don't have to get ready.
The path is there and the opportunity is at your fingertips, so all you have to do is grab it.
See you next week.
Bye.